Hey friends, and welcome to Module 3 of the Marriage Redesign Program. Today we are going to actually be exploring trigger management and emotional regulation. Now, I know some of you are probably like, oh my goodness, is this going to be a good thing? Or you're probably even saying, hallelujah, we're finally addressing some of this stuff. Because the reality is, you're where you should be at this place in your healing journey. Both of you are experiencing emotional dysregulation as well as triggers. Yes, both of you can actually experience this. So, we're going to be addressing this today, and we're also going to address it from a place of a biblical perspective as well as neuroscience integration. So, I really want to invite you both to slow your body down for just a little bit, okay? Because in the chaos of betrayal, we can get very hypervigilant. We can always be on guard, so to speak, scanning the environment for danger so that we either react, we either attack, or we become defensive, right? So I want you to take a deep breath, maybe unclench your jaw, okay? Allow your shoulders to drop, okay? So you're here, and it means that you're choosing to heal from this thing called betrayal trauma. And even though your body still may feel unsafe, you actually are healing by doing the work that you are doing. So I want you to hear me clearly today. Your reactions that you have been experiencing are not a moral failure. They are not a lack of faith, and they're not a character flaw. They can seem like all those things, but they're not. They are a result of your nervous system that learned it was no longer safe. And I'm talking to both of you at this point. So, in this module, we are not trying to solve problems, okay? We're not trying to revisit details, and we're not trying to fix either one of you, okay? What we're doing is something far more foundational. We are restoring regulation in both of you because regulation is what makes healing possible. Now, here is the guiding truth of this module today. You cannot heal what you cannot regulate. Think about that for a moment. You've been extremely dysregulated. Maybe you're defensive, or maybe you've been in attack mode and you're dysregulated. And you're like, why can't I heal? Well, you cannot heal what you cannot regulate. And you cannot reconnect while your nervous system is in survival mode. Scripture affirms this principle. It tells us in James 1:19, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Now, that verse is not just spiritual wisdom, it is neuroscience. Now, when your nervous system is activated, the part of the brain that is responsible for listening, empathy, reasoning, and even self control, it gets hijacked. It goes offline. Why does that happen? Well, because the blood flow that's going to the prefrontal cortex has shifted away from that. And it's going straight to the amygdala, that part of the brain that's the survival mode of the brain. And that part takes over. So you're in full-blown survival mode, so you can't reason, you can't think straight, you're not listening well, there's no empathy, and there's sometimes no self-control. So God's instruction is to slow down, okay? This is not punishment, it is protection for both of you. So, what I want to look at with you is what actually is a trigger. It's important for you to understand this because it's important to know what's going on with you right now, okay? So let's talk about triggers for a moment. A trigger is not an overreaction. Now, I'm sure that both of you have told each other at some point, you're so dramatic, you're overreacting. Well, that's not true. It's not an overreaction. It's not being too dramatic either. And it's not a weakness, all right? A trigger is a neurobiological response. You see, when betrayal occurs, your brain, specifically that amygdala part of the brain, the survival part of your brain, learns that safety has been violated. The amygdala's job is to detect the threat, not truth. So once betrayal has happened, the brain becomes hypervigilant, okay? So it's constantly scanning the environment for danger. So when there's a tone of voice or a question, a comment, maybe prolonged silence, a look, the phone dings, there's a memory that pops up. These are cues. And when a cue is detected, the brain sends an alarm before logic engages. So this is why you can say, I know this logically, I get it, but my body is reacting in a totally different way. Okay? So that's why that happens. That's because your body learned before the mind could reason. All right? So every time you experience a trigger, remember a trigger is a cue or an indicator light that's telling you there's something within you that still needs to be healed. It's kind of like the indicator lights on the dashboard of your car. They are there for a reason. They are telling you that something needs to be addressed in your car, and if you don't address it, the car is going to shut down. The same occurs within your body. So when a trigger happens, it's God's way, it's God's indicator light to let you know there's still healing that needs to take place. Now, while a trigger can feel very, very bad, triggers are actually a good thing. They really are. Now, I know they pull you back to the past. You feel like you're reliving that stuff all over again. You feel like you're actually there. That's not the case. Again, it is an indicator that says this part has not been healed and we need to address it appropriately. So when you have a trigger, there's actually a cycle that occurs that includes the body, brain, and behavior. And I want to walk you through that cycle so you're understanding what happens when a trigger occurs, what that cycle looks like, so that when you start to experience a trigger from now on, you know, oh, this is what this is, and this is where I am in that trigger. Okay, this is extremely helpful for both of you. So here's the trigger cycle. The first thing that happens is the cue takes place, or the indicator light goes off. That means that something internal or external reminds your body of danger. All right. So, secondly, there's the nervous system reaction. Okay. So, that's where your heart rate increases, your breath maybe shortens, you can't take a deep breath at all, your muscles might get tense, there's thoughts that are racing or even disappearing. You can't remember, everything's foggy. This happens once again because the blood shifts away from the prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that's responsible for reasoning, empathy, impulse control, perspective, self-control, all that stuff, right? The blood's no longer getting there. That blood supply is kind of shifted away and it's going to the survival part of your brain, that amygdala. The third part of that cycle is the survival response. It activates, it goes into full-blown activation. That's where we see fight, flight, freeze, maybe fawn. Okay? So you're ready to fight, put up your dukes, you're ready to flee, fly away from here. I want to get as far away as I need to. You're freezing in it because you don't know what to do, or you're fawning. Now, fawning is where you just succumb to it. Okay, you're just like, I can't do anything about it, so I'm under the weight of it. The fourth part of this trigger response is the reactive communication. Now, this is where you may get defensive, you may start to shut down, you're over-explaining things, maybe attacking, verbally vomiting a bunch of information, pleading, or withdrawing. Right? The fifth is the relational damage that occurs. And finally, shame, despair, or even escalation really, really kicks in. Now, here's the critical truth of all of this. You cannot, and let me emphasize that again, you cannot talk your way out of nervous system that's in survival mode. You just can't. Why? Because that part of your brain that's The reasoning or logical part of your brain that could talk it out has been hijacked, it's shut down. So you can't talk yourself out of dysregulation. That's why just communicating better, how we're kind of taught in traditional marriage counseling, fails when it comes to betrayal. It just doesn't work. So, how is this in real time when it comes to a trigger cycle? Well, let's look at it. Let's say that the first thing that happens, the cue or the indicator light kicks on, and what happened was you drove by a gas station that reminded you of a place where the affair partner and your spouse met. They met up there all the time, and it triggered you. Okay, it reminded you of D-Day, which was the danger of discovering the affair. The second part is when you feel that memory kick in, your heart starts to increase. The rate goes up. You start to breathe heavy. You get tense, right? All these thoughts are starting to run rampant, okay? And then the third thing is you go into survival mode. That's where you're like, oh, you either go into fight response or you're like, I just want to flee from all of this. Or shut down. You're freezing under it, fawning under it. That survival response kicks in. The fourth part of that trigger cycle is there's the reactive, the communication that happens. Now you're back with your spouse, and now you're emotionally vomiting all over them. You're attacking them. How could you have done this to me? I can't believe you did this to me. Thus, the fifth part kicks in. There's relational damage that has transpired. And finally, the spouse who was the betrayer now feels shame, despair, and the conversation might even be escalating out of control. Again, when you're in the midst of that, you can't talk yourself out of it. That's why many times I've already told you to take a time out. It is a healthy response, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hours, 24 hours even. Those are guidelines. But these are time periods of a healthy time out to give you both time to re-regulate so that your body feels safer and you can now discuss the trigger that took place. Remember, you can't talk yourself out of a dysregulated state. So let me just share with you some biblical truth about your bodies when it comes to being emotionally dysregulated and having triggers. Scripture never separates the body from spiritual life. We never see it separate. And actually in Psalm 139, it tells us, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That includes your nervous system. You see, your body was designed by God to protect you, to protect your life. So when your body reacts after betrayal, it's not rebelling, it's actually responding to the injury that has occurred. Proverbs 4:23 tells us, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Now, this is telling us that regulation is not avoidance. So when I tell you to take a step back, pause, take a step back, time out, both of you re-regulate, then come back to the conversation. I'm not telling you that so that you would avoid the conversation. I'm telling you that because you need to regulate. And again, regulation is not avoidance. It's guarding what has been wounded. That's the heart. So you're being a good steward of the heart that's been broken. So let's look at some early warning signs when we're dealing with emotional regulation and triggers, okay? It's important for both of you to recognize these early signs. I want you to be self-aware and be aware of it within your own self, but I also want you to start to be aware when your spouse is getting dysregulated. Why do I say that? Because healing begins with awareness. So before explosions happen, before shutdown, before the damage occurs, learn these early warning signs. This is critical. So physically, what are early signs? A tight chest, shallow breathing, unable to take a deep breath, a racing heart. Maybe you get ice cold or you feel like you're just burning up, right? You're on fire. Maybe there's numbness. You just feel completely numb all over, right? You just don't feel anything. Or you feel a heaviness, a pressure. Those are physical warning signs that you are emotionally dysregulated, that your nervous system is dysregulated. Let's look now at the emotional side of it, the emotional warning signs. Those are anxiety. You're anxious, you're panicky. Maybe you're feeling rage, severe anger, shame, guilt that is just crushing, fear, or hopelessness. All of these are emotional warning signs of nervous system dysregulation. And then there's behaviorally. That's where you're constantly interrupting your spouse while you're in the middle of a conversation. They can't say two words before you're interrupting. Or you're over explaining yourself or defending yourself. Maybe you're not saying anything anymore. You're completely shutting down. Or you do the ultimate where you just walk out and you leave the room. Now, I know that some of these can make you extremely angry. Normal response. But what I'd like you to know is they're not sins. They really aren't. They're signals. That's what they are. Your body is actually saying, I need safety before I can continue. I'm emotionally dysregulated. My nervous system is whacked out right now, and I need a timeout. I need to feel safe again within myself. Then we can continue. So, you both have some trigger response cards that I hope you have downloaded. It's within your module. I want you to download these. These are great tools to keep on hand for you to use when you are triggered. This structure helps to create safety. When your nervous system is activated, memory and reasoning are impaired. Remember, because the logical part of your brain is shut down. So you need something tangible that can help you. That is why structure is essential. And these trigger response cards give you that. 1 Corinthians 14:33 tells us God is a God of order, not a God of chaos. So the trigger response cards create order during the emotional chaos that you're currently in. They're great tools to help. So let's talk about the unfaithful spouse. Your response card will help you to identify how you react when you're threatened, what helps you to regulate, what escalates you, and how you can return to safety. As the betrayed spouse, your trigger response card will help you identify how your body experiences threats, what safety looks like to you, what you need during activation when you're activated and hypervigilant, and what helps you to reconnect. And then there's a third card. Now, this is the couple trigger response card. This one is your covenant agreement. This one is a non-negotiable, and these are to be honored, okay? This is your pause language. This is your regulation tools that you're going to utilize when you're taking that healthy time out. Your re-engagement timeline. Is it going to be an hour, 2 hours, 24? What's the guidelines for you? And what are your non-negotiables, okay? These are important because safety is non-negotiable, all right? So let me really quickly share with you some safe communication rules when you are activated, when you are emotionally dysregulated, either one of you or both of you. When either of you is activated, communication changes. Can I get a yes and amen on that one? It really does, right? Not because you're immature, and it may seem like it because some of the words that come out your mouth, right? I know, because I've been there. Some words you're like, I didn't know I could say those things, okay? This is because your brain is offline, okay? Remember, that part of your brain's been hijacked. So we remove pressure and expectation when those things occur. So during this time period, there's no problem solving. Don't try to fix it, all right? Don't over explain things. There's no defending, no interrogating, and no spiritual bypassing, okay? So that means you're not saying statements, you're staying clear of these kinds of statements. Just forgive. Oh, pray about it. Just let it go. Those are off limits, okay? Those shut down the nervous system further. So those are a no-go. Instead, you're going to choose containment. What does that mean? You're going to slow your speech. There's going to be fewer words, and there's going to be validation of the feelings without fixing. So let's say the betrayed spouse gets dysregulated and triggered, and boy, is she on the attack mode. Instead of putting up your dukes and you're like, okay, I've got to defend myself, right? You shouldn't be speaking to me this way, and, yada, 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 whatever it is, but I've got to defend myself. Instead of doing that, you're going to validate the way she feels. You know what, honey? You are absolutely right. I did do those things. And I know that that has to feel horrible for you. And I am so sorry that I did this and that my actions are causing this right now. What do you need in this moment? Okay. Why are we doing this? Well, because Proverbs 15:1 tells us a gentle answer turns away wrath. Gentleness helps to regulate a nervous system that is dysregulated. So you actually have an opportunity to step into the healing process. All right. Now, let me just say this. If the conversation has become toxic, then it's time to pause, right? This doesn't mean you're abandoning the conversation. Once again, you are pausing to take a healthy time out so that you can both regulate and then come back to the conversation. And this is essential. Again, pausing is not abandonment, it is wisdom. Ecclesiastes 3 reminds us there is a time for everything. That means there's a time to talk, but there's also a time to pause and re-regulate. Healthy pauses include 3 elements. The first one is name what's happening. Okay, I'm triggered, and I'm triggered really bad right now. Number 2, name what is needed. You know what? I am so triggered and dysregulated. Oh, okay. So this is not going to go well in conversation. So let's take about an hour. Let's re-regulate. So let's take a pause and a healthy timeout, and let's come back in an hour and discuss this. Okay. And that takes us into number 3, which is name when you will return in an hour. Whatever that is for you, okay? Here's another example. Name what is happening. I'm becoming overwhelmed. Number 2, name what is needed. I need 30 minutes to regulate. And number 3, name when you will return. Look, let's reconnect at 7:30, okay? This protects the relationship while honoring safety. Withdrawal actually abandons. Okay, so if you withdraw altogether, never to return, right, to that conversation and not to resolve it, that's abandonment. But pausing actually preserves. And that's what we want to do, is take the healthy pause. Now, why is it important for you to re-regulate, okay, before you re-engage with one another? You do not re-enter conversation until both, please make sure you heard me on that, until both nervous systems are regulated. Because if one of you comes back and is dysregulated, it's going to go south again. So you both need to be regulated. All right. Now, this is not, again, this is not avoidance. This is stewardship. So you need to make sure you're taking the time for both of you to get re-regulated. Regulation tools calm your vagus nerve. That's that largest nerve in your body, runs from your brain all the way down to your gut. And when you are dysregulated, it is like a tightrope. It tenses up. That's why you feel all of the tension here. You can't move your neck well. You get major headaches, all of the things, right? And it's signaling safety to the brain. Okay. So that vagal nerve, it'll tell the brain when it's not safe. Okay, that's when it tightens. But it also needs to tell the brain when it's safe to return. How do you do that? By using regulation tools to calm that vagal nerve. So how you do this is through slow breathing, grounding work, movement, prayer, sensory regulation. You have some of those videos in this module. I would urge you to use some of those and see what works best for you. One of my favorites is the vagal nerve reset. This is a great one to help you. Or the EFT, okay, which is a tapping movement because it helps to regulate that vagal nerve. So try those out, see which one works for you the best, and use it daily to train your body to self-regulate. Philippians 4:7 reminds us the peace of God will guard your hearts and your minds. Peace guards. Peace guards. Only then do you re-engage, is when peace has returned to you. Okay? Now that doesn't mean you wait a week. You don't go over a 24-hour period. So whatever you need to do to re-regulate yourself, and that's on you individually, okay, you do that. Because regulated conversations heal. Dysregulated conversations wound and traumatize. So, as you go through and practice everything you've learned in this module, you're going to notice something. Triggers still may occur, all right? I wish I could wave a magic wand and they never happen again, but that's not the case. All of us in life have triggers, usually on a daily basis. Why? Because we live in a fallen world. This will help you with everyday life. So, yes, you may still have some triggers, but they will shorten. Okay? Pauses will also start to feel safer. Explosions, they're going to lose their power, and repair will start to become possible. Now, again, this is not failure. If you're experiencing some of these things, it's actually healing. You are healing. And this work prepares you for what's coming next, because once regulation is established, then truth can start to be introduced safely. Okay? So in the next module, we're going to move you into honesty, transparency, rebuilding safety through truth without re-traumatizing one another. But for now, I want you to honor the pause. I want you to use your trigger response cards. I want you to protect your connection. You're not behind. You're rebuilding wisely. Okay? So I will see you in our next module. Be blessed.